good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to week 1 of Aloha 24 April. I saw that you guys are already chatting. I love that. You're in the waiting room and you know each other already. That's wonderful. So I prepared a little workshop for you today, which is a little bit different, I'd say, than what we've done before, because I always want to challenge you guys, but not, too much so that you still have fun doing what we do. Today, celebrating Native Hawaiian Plants Month, we're going to paint loose florals. This is Ōhi'a lehua, Hawaii's endemic state tree. And we're going to combine a very loose, watery technique with, more accurate paint strokes for the flowers, and then add some fine details with shimmer. So it's going to be the best of two worlds, working very loosely without a sketch, and then getting into more finer details. All right. So, well, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you might have seen my stories over at the Aloha Studios that I was in Honolulu yesterday, and it was absolutely wonderful. So in case you're wondering, I don't live on the same island as Honolulu. So I live on the Big Island that's, further south, and Oahu with Honolulu is further north. And I rarely go to the other islands, which is crazy because they're literally just around the corner. But you have to fly or swim, or if you have a boat, then you can take the boat. But the regular mode of traveling to another island is to take an airplane. So honestly, I hardly ever go. This was such a treat. Where I live here, it's more of a small kind of town. It feels very rural and it's small. And going to Honolulu, seeing all the skyscrapers and stores and traffic and people, it was exhilarating. I mean, I just enjoyed being in the big city for a day. So I was wondering about you guys. Do you live in a more quiet area and then enjoy going to the big city? Or do you live in the big city and it's the other way around? You enjoy going to a quiet place when you have time on the weekend? So yeah, let me know. For me, definitely I enjoy living more quiet, but then I also absolutely love going to the big city. And yesterday Tracy, who's here in the chat too, and Amy and her family, we went to the Bishop Museum. It's so fascinating. It's a museum that exhibits artifacts from hundreds of years back in Hawaiian culture, or even further back. And you can see all the handcrafted things, and everything's explained really well. They have films you can watch and photographs. The photographs are amazing. You have this place, and then there are photos from 150 years ago, and there's no buildings yet. It just blew my mind, really. So, but enough talk for now. Let's turn around the camera and let's get started with painting. And then I can also look at my iPad to see the chat, because it's always a bit tricky for me to see it on my phone. All right, so let me just grab my phone out of the holder and turn it over. Okay, let's switch the camera around. And here we go. This is what we're gonna paint today. Almost there. Just trying to get it into the holder without switching off the phone or pressing buttons I'm not supposed to press. Right. Okay, Let me just wake up my iPad so I can look at the chat and see what you guys have talked about so far. Hello, hello, Irina, Debbie, Sylvie. Hi, Mom. Alina. Aw, everybody's here. Great. Rosie, Megan, Linda. Grüezi. Yes. Okay. So Debbie says her big city is New York City. Yeah, not too safe though these days. You know, Amy told me the same thing about San Francisco. So I guess, I mean, for me, definitely, I'm more of a living in the countryside girl. But yeah, I've been hearing stories about the bigger cities. Okay, Alina lives in a small city. Still too noisy. Alina, you got to move to the mountains and live in a tree house in the mountains, totally secluded. That would be really quiet. Do you guys crave that sometimes to just go away for 1 or 2 weeks into the wilderness and just have peace and no phone reception and no distractions? I find it interesting and also scary at the same time. I don't know. I mean, I grew up without internet, without cell phones and everything. I am so grateful I grew up without all that technology, but now I'm so used to it. I don't know if I could live without, all this stuff for 2 weeks, to be honest. Sounds terrible, but yeah, I'm just gonna admit it. Okay, and Sabina says, outside of Seattle. Oh, yeah, yeah. I've been to Seattle a few times. Such a fascinating city. I loved all the sculptures in the city and like artwork everywhere in the city. That was so fascinating. Also, they have this weird thing. It's like a chewing gum wall. That's in Seattle, right? Do I remember correctly? It's a wall that's covered with chewing gum, guys. It's so gross. But I mean, it's a thing. Okay, let me. Sabina says yes. Yep. Yikes. I agree. Okay, you guys. Let me talk about the supplies. The nice thing about this technique today is we don't need a lot of supplies. We basically just need paper, our watercolor paints, and brushes, and some water. So here you go. This is quick and easy. So I am using my beloved handmade sketchbook by Denise, which features the arches paper. So it's 100% cotton, it's cold pressed, it's pretty thick. And my practice piece here is actually on the Chinese Baohong paper, which is also 100% cotton. It has a bit of a finer tooth compared to the arches. So it's always a little bit risky, honestly, to do the practice piece on a different piece of paper than the final artwork. But hey, I mean, I want to have a little bit of an adventure too. So let's see how it goes. In general, cotton paper is a very good for loose florals and for using a lot of water. If you want to do loose florals or work with a lot of water, I can highly recommend that you use paper that at least has a percentage of cotton. So for example, Fabriano makes paper that has 20% cotton. That would be totally sufficient. You don't always have to go for the most expensive one, of course. And naturally, if you're new to this technique, just feel free to practice on whatever paper you have. It'll work. It might not look the same, but it'll work for sure, and you get some practice time in. Then I have basically colors red, yellow, green, and shimmer, bronze. So honestly, whatever red, yellow, green colors you have at hand. I am using Ōhi'a, so that makes sense, right? We're painting Ōhi'a. I'm using the color Ōhi'a. It's a vermilion orange hue. If you don't have this color, you can also use just a regular red. This is a medium crimson red called Heliconia. You can also use a flame tree. That's a medium cadmium red. It really doesn't matter. Just use any kind of red because this tree and these flowers come in different colors, orange, red, yellow. So please feel free to use whatever color you have. This is my mango yellow, medium cadmium yellow. You can also use any other kind of yellow. Ko'oko'olau, pineapple, humu, whatever you have. Then I have here eucalyptus, and I think that's a Victoria green. Monstera, chromium oxide green, and Kona Jazz. That's a bronze shimmer. Okay, I'm looking over to the chat and my mom is saying, yes, it's really exciting to go and experience something else and to go to Honolulu. Yeah, and my mom has been to Honolulu as well. We went there to see the floating lanterns. If you have never seen that, just Google it. It's amazing. It's on Memorial Day every year in Honolulu, and they do these paper lanterns and let them go out into the ocean when it gets dark. And it's just the most captivating picture and very emotional too. So also something that would be great to capture with this technique as well. As for brushes, I am using two. This is a size 8 quill brush. Feel free to use another type of round brush. It actually doesn't really matter that much for this technique. You know, any type of large round brush or quill brush, because we're gonna just do the background wash and then the leaves with this brush. And after that, we'll use a small round brush. This is a size 2. So just these two brushes today. I also have a ceramic mixing palette, which I'm not even sure I need today. I think I painted this one actually without using a palette. I just went straight in from the pans. Okay, Linda just said that they do this in Nashville as well. The paper lanterns for Memorial Day, you mean? Isn't this just amazing? I was so moved. It's really, you know, the dark blue water, then we had a gorgeous sunset, and then those illuminated, candlelit paper lanterns. Absolutely amazing. All right, for step 1, we're just gonna start with laying down some water. Now, if you look at my piece here, you could tell that I didn't cover the whole paper with water. So I pretty much just did little blobs like this. And I also tried to paint in roughly a circle shape. Okay, can you see that? I'm just dabbing down water and I'm leaving some spots without water. And then next, re-wetting my brush, I'm grabbing some of my Ōhi'a paint and just dropping it in randomly all around here. And then just going and kind of pushing the pigment around a little bit. Make sure you don't use too much paint here. This is only supposed to be a very light background wash. If you have water pooling like this, just, you know, pick up your paper, tilt it a little bit so the paint can move around. Make sure you don't cover everything with red or orange because we also want to drop in some green. All the places that I have painted orange red now will be also the places that I will paint my more detailed flowers. So if you want to plan out your piece a little more, you can set down the paints in the areas where you want to have your flowers later. But I really encourage you to just go ahead and, you know, lay down some colors just very randomly. This is the Monstera I'm using, the chromium oxide green. And now I'm gonna grab some of my darker green, the eucalyptus. I think I have to make myself a new pan. This is very low. I'm pretty low on a lot of my own colors and I don't have any in reserve. Like my Ōhi'a is almost empty. I'm a little bit behind on making paint right now. That's the downside of going to Honolulu and having fun. No time to make more paint. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just really randomly setting down some more paint. And even though watercolor always dries lighter, so right now it looks darker than, more vibrant than after it dries, I really want to make sure that this is only a very light wash. I will, however, drop in a little bit more of my vermilion orange in a few places, already anticipating where I will paint the flowers later. You could call these marking the spots where you'll paint the flower blossoms. Make sure you work while everything is still wet so you don't have any edges, drying edges within your painted area. It's okay to have these white spots. I leave this on purpose. I leave the white spots here that don't cover the paper on purpose. But of course, if you don't like that look, you can just paint the whole thing. So this technique honestly really works for pretty much everything that is floral. If you want to paint a bouquet, if you want to paint a lei flower garland, or any types of flowers with, you know, some pretty leaves, twigs, you can always start with this technique. Just laying down the background first, let it dry, and then go over everything, painting in the details. And as I mentioned earlier, you could even use this to paint landscape scenes. So the lanterns in the ocean, you could do everything in blue and then put in a horizon line and then add the lanterns as details. So I think this is a really fabulous technique to get you started if you feel kind of motivated but don't really know how to start. You can just begin by laying down this abstract wash of paint and then just paint over it. All right, so this needs to dry, which means, because otherwise it's gonna take forever, I am gonna excuse myself for a couple minutes and I'll be right back. I'll dry this with a hairdryer. Just one thing, if your paint is pooling like this, just be careful with the hairdryer because you might actually splatter all the paint around. So just make sure it's not too wet. You can use a little towel or paper towel to just mop up some of the water. This should be okay. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I can see a little bit of a sheen here at the top, which means I haven't dried this completely, but hey, let's just flow with this. Hold on, let me just rearrange my settings here a little bit. All right. So you're gonna have a different look naturally. The paper being dry or the paper being slightly wet still when you do the next step. So let's just try it out and see what the difference is. As I mentioned before, the top part of my paper is still a little bit moist. So you can see right away when I paint my leaves that they get a bit blurry, which is kind of like a cool effect, I think. It will naturally appear as if the leaves are more in the background, the way they blend and blur with the moist paper. So I'm just going around and painting in some random leaves. It's just 2 strokes with my brush. So like this, tip down, then press down the belly of the brush and let go. And then do that on both sides. And you don't actually also have to finish all the leaves completely. You can just do some, you know, some like random spots like this, just laying down the brush once. Then you have different shapes, different widths of the leaves, which creates a bit more of an interest visually, I think. Okay, let's look at this more closely. So up here you can see the edges of the leaves blurred a little bit and blended with the still wet paper. And then down here the paper was already dry and I have more crisp lines. So you can play with that. Up next, I'm gonna use the the chromium oxide green. And because this is a pretty opaque paint, I will actually go ahead and dilute it a little bit on my palette. So opaque just means it's not as translucent. So some paints naturally are very translucent, like you know, all the quinacridones and the phtalos, and then there are some paints that are very opaque, like the cadmiums, for example. So this cadmium yellow and also this chromium oxide green, when you use these colors with just a little water, they almost behave like gouache paint, very, very opaque. So if you want to create a more translucent color, then just mix it with a bit more water than you would usually. and see how this is totally blending into the background. This is also another effect of working with cotton paper. It holds the moisture really well, but it holds it inside the paper fibers. So you could pretty much say cotton paper holds the water inside the paper, inside the fibers. Whereas when you work with wood pulp paper, the water will stay on top of the paper. You can almost think of it as a pond with a plastic lining, and the water just stays on top and you try to paint with it. And the cotton paper, it just soaks in like a kitchen towel, you know, it's still wet and you paint on the wet towel, so to speak. So knowing this, you can really have this work to your advantage. The paper that's not cotton, the paper that's wood pulp paper is, for example, really good for illustrations, very fine detailed with, you can do gouache very well on this kind of paper. Everything that is more fine detailed, or, you know, if you want to use fine liner, etc. And then the cotton paper is great for layering and for loose florals and washes. All right, so just gonna drop in some more paint in a few of the darker leaves here. Yeah, I'm liking it. So this whole thing is more or less a circle, and I distributed the leaves also in a circle shape within my background circle, so to speak. And I also try to not paint the same amount of leaves in every cluster. So I have 3 here, I have a few more here, and a few more here. So this kind of, I'm trying to balance the composition without overthinking it. Just going with my feeling to place some leaves in different spots. With time, when you paint more and you practice more, this will come very naturally, very automatically. In the beginning, when you still plan your pieces more, you can try and work with things such as create a circle shape, and then work with uneven numbers, especially with flowers. I think that looks great. 3 leaves or 3 flowers, 5, 7. Just, I don't know why, but somehow this creates a very harmonious feel to the piece. Okay, Alina is complaining that she can't hear the birds. I can hear birds. Can you hear them now? Maybe I'm talking too much. Also, we have some construction going on, so that might also be a reason. For the next step, I'm gonna, okay, so now we have 2 options. Basically, we could let everything dry and then paint in the Ōhi'a lehua flowers, these little pom-poms, or I could continue and do the little stems here while the paper is still moist. We'd have some blends going on there as well, but I think it depends if you want your flowers to look more crisp and your stems, or if you're okay with just blending everything a little bit. The reason why I personally would prefer to paint the stems now and risk everything blurring a little bit is so that they can mysteriously disappear into the background. Because otherwise we'll just have some random Ōhi'a lehua flowers floating around in our space here, which I think is fine too. But I'm just gonna try and create something where the stems just mysteriously disappear into the background. So in my original piece, I actually used brown. I used a burnt umber called Cocoa, which I don't have handy here. So what I just did was mix my vermilion orange Ōhi'a color with my chromium oxide green, and then we have brown. And now just go in and gently add a few strokes. And this will determine where we paint our flowers later. Let's do another one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is good. And then I imagine having a pom-pom here and over here, here and here and here. And then I'll paint another one over here. Let's do one more like that. And how about down here? This is just going to be a very small one. Maybe one that hasn't opened yet. Okay, I'm looking over to the chat, and Alina says the noise from the construction probably scared them away. Yeah, it's possible. It is pretty quiet today. Over here, the time of day where the birds are most active is between 5:30 a.m. and about 6:15. I know this sounds it's interesting. They're very timely, our birds. So it's pretty much the same time every day. Do you notice that too, where you live? That the birds are on time? It's like a natural alarm clock. All right, for the next step, I would like everything to be dry again. So I'm just gonna go use my hair dryer, and I'll be right back. Okay, Tracy says, same here, which means birds at the same time. Well, yeah, I mean, you live in Honolulu, so it makes sense that the birds on the other island are on a similar schedule, even though one could imagine that because Honolulu is so busy that the birds maybe get up sooner too. And the feral parrots squawk at dawn and dusk while flying over. Oh, we have the same thing on the Big Island. The parrots that escaped and then thrived out in the nature. Yes, we have flocks of parrots flying over the treehouse, and they have to squawk while they fly. I don't think they can fly without squawking. It's like, one thing goes with the other. And then Alina says she has her own little owl that she hears around 11 p.m. Oh, what kind of owls do you have in Romania? I wonder if it's the same as the ones we have in Germany. I mean, it's kind of like the same climate, isn't it? So you say hello. How do you say hello to the owl? Do you do owl sounds? Sylvie says she had a wonderful nightingale and owls too. There's no such thing as a normal owl, Alina. They're all special. So funny. But honestly, I don't know what owls there are over there. I mean, We have the Ōhi'a in Germany, which, I kid you not, is the same name as the glue brand, the yellow glue, UHU. That's one of the biggest owls we have in Germany. Always makes me laugh when I use that glue. It's like, Ōhi'a. Kreuzchen. How am I supposed to translate that, Sylvie? I don't know what Kreuzchen is in English. It's like a small owl, you guys. We had that translation problem again. So, you know, there are these large owls, like the barn owls, etc. And then you have these tiny, tiny owls, like our Hawaiian one, the pueo, you know, that's like a small kind owl. Alina's gonna do some research. Excellent, excellent. Okay, enough of the owls. Let's do some detailed flower painting on top of our kind of like abstract, beautiful mess here. All right, so in order to paint the Ōhi'a lehua flowers, you want to make sure you don't paint straight lines. That is just something that I find doesn't look very organic for these types of flowers. So you want to do a curved line like this. So you have a center line and then you just curve to both sides like this to create a circle. So think circle and then follow the lines of that circle. All right, let's start on the top left. If you're left-handed, you want to start at the top right. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see the technique better. Hold your brush upright, set it down with the tip, and then just do a quick swoosh. 1, 2, like this. This is a gentle but confident movement. Use your whole hand to do the motion. So don't do this. Just keep your brush steady in your hand like this, and then you move your whole, see, your whole hand like that. So, and then step 2 would be to create a bit more of a thick line down here and then let it become thinner towards the tip. So you want to press down harder here at the bottom and then let go like this. Make sure that you use not too much water for this. You want your brush to be not dry, but honestly a little bit more on the dry side. See how that creates interesting effects here? So this dry brush look creates a more, I think, organic impression. And it makes our flower look a bit more full too. So I feel like you almost create different levels. There's a foreground and then a middle and a background of this flower just by creating with both a more dry brush and wet brush look. I hope this makes sense. So this texture I'm creating now with my dry brush, I think it recedes into the background a little bit. So I create kind of like a fuller looking flower using both a brush that is a bit more wet to create the lines in the foreground and then a brush that's a bit more dry. Okay, and then I'll drop in some paint here to make this part of the flower look a bit darker. I'm going to go back to my brown that I mixed Naturally, if you have brown at hand, you don't have to mix it. I'm just gonna mix a little bit more. Now drop it here into the base of my flower and then drag out the paint like this to create the base that holds the flower. So this is kind of like a vessel that holds this Ōhi'a lehua blossom, and then that goes into the little stem and twig. I'm rinsing my brush so it's clean, it's just water now. I'm dragging down the paint into the stems that I painted earlier. This way you can create a really smooth blend. Okay, let's do a few more. Thank you, Linda. And Alina says it's probably a barn owl. Yeah, I agree. I think those are still pretty plenty in Europe. And the barn owls are pretty big in size. And my mom is asking if, yeah, that mysterious German word Käuzchen, if that is just owl in English. You know, I'm sure they have a more, like they have this kind of distinction too in English, between the larger owls and the smaller owls. I just don't know. Wait, I could ask James. Jamesy?
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if there is, in English, a word for the bigger owl and then also those smaller kind of owls that we have? Do you use different words for those, or is it all owls?
I would have to ask Siri. No, sorry.
Yeah, I'm wondering too. What would Siri say? I mean, we can just ask Siri for the translation of Käuzchen. Somebody want to do that? I'm really curious now. I want to know. All right, let's paint the next one. So I am having a little bit more of a wet brush. Okay, Vesta says they're all called owls. They just have different names. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Thank you. Okay, owl it is. Okay, for the next one, let's place it over here. Make sure that you don't place it on the same height as your first one. So let's put this down below a little bit, like this. Same technique. Set down your brush, hold it upright. A bit more pressure at the bottom and then just let go. Preferably using your whole hand and creating a curve. If you've never done this before, please just feel free to practice this on a scrap piece of paper. Even though I honestly feel that this whole piece today is more of a very natural, flowing, experimental piece, I still want you, most importantly, to have fun. So if you're not sure about this technique and you want to practice it first, please feel free to do so. I also realized that I painted the flower totally not where the stem is. Honestly, this only happens during live streams because I'm so distracted. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna set a second flower here that's kind of blending in with this one. So we'll just have a double flower. This is funny. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing as I did before. I'll grab my brown mix, drop that into the bottom of my flower, and then rinse my brush, dry it a little bit, and drag down the paint here from the bottom of the flower to mix with that stem I painted previously. Rinse my brush again so it's clean, just water, drag it all the way down. All right, Let's just add a little stem here on this poor floating blossom. And we can just let this go into the other one here. All right, and now we're just gonna go around the whole painting and add more flowers in the same technique. All right. Holding my brush upright, starting from the center point, and very quickly adding strokes. Curved lines. Adding some brown. Mixing and blending with the stem here. Okay, next one we have down here. Okay, over in the chat, Alina is saying that she only hears the owl, so she hasn't seen it yet. Yes. For me, it's interesting. It's the other way around. I see our Hawaiian owls more often than I hear them. So I see them pretty often flying around our treehouse here. I'm really lucky that way. And also, you know, by the highway, sitting by the side on these posts. I actually don't even know what they sound like because I think I've only seen them so far. So Alina, for me, it's the other way around. I see them, I don't hear them. I'm off camera now mixing some more of my brown using red and green, dropping it into my flower here. Painting what looks almost like fingers or hands to hold my blossom, and then blending it with my stem underneath. And Mom says, "Oh sweet, I can hear James's voice." Yes. Oh, hi, Lanelle. Okay, Lanelle says she has barn owls, western screech owls. Ooh, a screech owl. Do they do that? Do they screech? And great horned owls in my backyard trees here in San Jose, California. Oh, wow. So 3 different kinds? That's wonderful. I adore owls. They're just so interesting and different. I've seen a few documentaries about owls, and I'm always fascinated at how they can fly without making a sound at all. Like the way apparently their wings are constructed makes them just be absolutely silent. So the poor mouse that they're catching won't hear them coming. All right, I'm looking at the chat and my mom's still talking about James. Hi, Mom. I think James actually left. He's out on the driveway now, so when he comes back, I'll tell him you said hi. Okay, as you can see for these ones, 2 ones here at the bottom, I made them a bit smaller. So right now I have like the centerpiece here, which is a bit bigger. Then I have the cluster of 3, which are each smaller, but together they're pretty big. So this creates kind of like a balance. And I think, honestly, this would already be enough. I don't necessarily have to add another flower, but I'll do one in another direction just for funsies. So this one is just gonna look down and sideways a little bit, like this. So if you feel that, you know, your hand is cramping up, you're getting a bit too rigid with this whole thing, then just walk away from it for a minute. Just let it sit for a little bit. Relax your hand, you know, do something like this. Rotate your shoulders. Because this exercise should really be nothing but relaxing. Really, with this one, don't try to be too exact, getting all the details right, because really there is no right with this piece. It just should really flow. And I think the more relaxed you are and your hand movement is, the more natural these flowers will look. Hi, puppy. Hello. Hi. I just, yeah. Oh, I'm attacked by a little tiny chihuahua. Hi, you. Yes. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Down now. Down, girl. Okay. That's good. Okay, little chihuahua attack. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Look at the whole construction. Jamesy. Yeah. My mom says hi to you.
Hi, Mom.
Say it louder.
Hi, Mom. See you soon.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mom? That was just for you. Okay, so the differences I can see here between my original piece and this one, this is more compact. See, this is a bit more compact. It's more of an oval shape, which I really like. This is more like a square, and it's the florals aren't as together as compact. So I honestly prefer my composition over here, but it's fine because, as I said, hey, it's a live stream. I'm not, you know, I'm paying more attention to how I explain things and say things. So just so you know that I'm my own critic as well, and I'm looking at my pieces and, you know, criticizing what I could do better or different without really judging. I mean, you know, it's fine. I don't mind that it looks different. It could also be, for example, that the paper is square. That probably has an influence, or influences me in how I create the shape of the whole composition. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I grabbed some of my yellow paint, and I'm using this really opaquely, so just a tiny amount of water. And I'm dropping in some yellow dots all around my flowers here. A little bit later, we're gonna also go over this with our metallic paint. So we're gonna have 2 different kinds of dots. The yellow ones and then the bronze ones. I'm doing these dots because the flower in real life also has kind of like, they almost look like little needles. So they have this long line, and then at the end of the line they have a little sphere on top, a little dot. I'm not gonna be too diligent with putting the dot exactly at the end of every line. So that's why I'm just kind of randomly adding my dots. And you can even go as far as just adding dots all around your piece here. Okay, so we are done with the matte part, so to speak, with the matte part, the colors of our painting. And as the final step, I'm going to add the shimmer details and lines. So now is the time to, in quotation mark, fix some things, in the sense that we can define leaf shapes a little more. We can also add some of the flower buds, you know, before they start blooming. They look like little clusters of flower buds. They're always very tightly together. So that's why I drew these buds like that, really like clusters of flower buds. Okay, for this step, again, it has to be really dry. Do you know what? I'm gonna just fix one thing that I see here. Hold on, which is in my first flower. Kind of not really liking how I have this drying edge here, see? So I'm just dropping in some paint. I'm rinsing my brush, dabbing it a little bit so it's not too wet. Rinsing it again. You gotta kind of have to repeat that process to keep the brush fairly clean. If you don't rinse your brush and you just leave it full of paint, naturally what is going to happen is that you kind of repaint the whole stem, adding more and more pigment, and it's going to be just very pronounced. Okay, and I'm just going to repaint my flower here using a clean brush. So I'm repeatedly rinsing and drying my brush. This should actually lead to my drying edge disappearing and being a bit more homogenic and smooth. Okay, let's see how that works out. I'm gonna go and dry this page and I'll be right back. All right, yeah. Yeah, I think that worked pretty well. Okay, let's do the last step. I have here my metallic shimmer paint called Kona Jazz. It's a bronze shimmer. You can, of course, also use a metallic jelly roll pen. Oh, and Alina, do you hear the birds now? Listen. Those birds are called Mynah, M-Y-N-A-H. They have a very distinct sound. Like, "Rick, rick, rick, rick." And they love cat food, so that's why they are so excited. One of our cats probably didn't finish their bowl and now they're out there. I can hear them. They're out there on the lanai, on the deck, and stealing the cat food. The dry cat food, you know, they just fly down there, grab one piece, fly back up, eat it, and yeah, repeat the process. And they talk a lot while they eat, kind of like me. Okay, so as I said, we're just gonna use our metallic shimmer paint to define some of our leaf shapes. As you can see, I'm holding the brush very gently. So I'm trying to not have a death grip on it, and on the opposite, just loosely holding, like very, like barely. And this way, I can create some very loose lines with a lot of variation within the stroke, thicker to thinner, and holding it upright, kind of like a stamp almost. To set down some little dots to complement the yellow ones that I've already done. Now I'm just going around and choosing some of my leaves to add a little bit of a line detail. You can be very playful with this part and maybe even add a pattern like this to indicate the veins of the leaf, or you can even add dots within the leaf. Because this is shimmer paint, I just want to make sure you see what I'm doing. I'm not, let me check the angle of the camera. Can you see this all right? It's a bit tricky sometimes with shimmer paint to show up on camera. So I'm just gonna continue to move and tilt the page a little bit so you can see the shimmer paint better. I just saw that Alina likes me imitating bird sounds. Yeah, I'm trying. I do my best. Be my best bird that I can be. All right, here we have a little bit of an empty spot, so I'm just gonna add a few leaf shapes just with my shimmer paint. Let me just hold this, grab this, hold it in my hand so I don't have to reach over my paper. How about I zoom in a little bit more again so you can see the details better. Let me tilt the camera a little bit. Hopefully this will help see you better. Okay, little oval shapes to indicate the flower buds. Choosing another leaf shape for some outlines. It's interesting for me to see that this paper, this is the arches. It soaks up the shimmer paint way more than the Baohong paper. Very interesting. They're both cotton, but they are different. Okay, let's see. So I think The biggest empty space is still here, which I kind of like though, because this is very full here on top. So I like having a little bit of a breathing space here. So I'm not going to add anything directly in this spot. I will, however, add some lines to my leaves down here. Also, please note that I'm not adding leaves, lines to all the leaves. So I'm just choosing certain ones to add a little bit of a contour. Okay, and then down here I'm adding a few more of these oval shapes to indicate the buds. And a few more dots. I really like this. It almost looks like liquid gold. I think metallic shimmer paint is really excellent for this type of decorative finishing of a piece. I usually don't paint full pieces with shimmers. I think I use them more for accents, highlights, etc. And this is just, of course, a matter of preference. But I think it's very effective to just use them in this manner. All right, I'm gonna zoom out again and then tilt the paper a little bit so we can have a look at our composition here. Let's zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, here we go. Let's tilt it a little bit. Ooh, that shimmer is nice. All right, guys, what do you think? Can I leave it like that? Yeah, it's definitely a bit different than my original piece here. What I do like about this one is, see how the background is even more smooth, I think? So it's very nice. It kind of blends in better. This piece is more crisp, has more crisp lines, both with the flowers and also in the background and the leaves. This is a bit more, everything's a bit more smooth, diluted, blended together. I guess this is really a matter of preference. I personally prefer this style, you know, a bit more crisp, a bit more definition, I guess. But I do like today's piece as well. They both have their pros and cons for sure. All right, let me see if I can find my date stamp. Oh, here it is. I have a box where I keep all my stamps and stamp and ink pads that I use often. So my alphabet and then my hand carved stamps that I use to create packaging or to, you know, adorn my packaging. And then I have this cool thing where you can change the numbers. Oh wait, no, this is the wrong one. April 01, April 4th. Is it April 4th today? 4/4? 4424? That's really cool. Okay. And let's choose, no. What about green or brown? Which one should I use? Green or brown? What do you think? Brown? Green? Sylvie says green. Green, green, green. Alina says brown. Of course, you guys. Green, green. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do half-half. Okay, so I'm gonna do the year in brown, and then the day and the month in green. hope it's not horrible. Yeah, okay. Here we go, green and brown. Okay, let's put away these stamps and ink pads. Okay, so for all of you who painted along today, how are you liking your piece? Oh, Sylvie says she really loves both and even likes her own piece. Yay! Oh, that's great to hear. I love that. All right. Well, I hope you are enjoying the session and you enjoyed the session and you enjoy painting loose florals with me. So what I would really like to know, because next week we have a fern, would you like to do another more loose type of session, or do you want to try a totally new technique? I'm only asking because there are a few options. You know, I've been doing experiments with something really loose. I've been doing experiments with negative space painting. So there's, you know, there's a lot of different options when it comes to ferns. So yeah, let me know if you can't make up your mind right now. You can always text me over on Instagram, of course, at Aloha Watercolors and also the Aloha Studios. And as always, please, if you enjoyed this session, leave me a comment underneath this video and a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell. There are so many things to say. But most of all, I love that you show up to my live stream every time. I really appreciate it. I have tons of fun painting with you guys and talking story. And, you know, talking story about Hawaii a little bit, about our plants and flowers here, about owls that I don't know, but try to imitate, all this kind of stuff. All right. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And I'll see you for the next session. I don't have a date yet. I'll announce it over on my Instagram. I'll put a notification here into my YouTube. I'll send out a newsletter. So I will let you know. All right. Have a wonderful day, evening, and morning. Aloha and goodbye. See you next time.